Alright, so I woke up this morning and I was going through my female ball pythons looking for eggs, and sure enough I found a really big female sitting on a big clutch of eggs. And what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to take those eggs and I'm going to set them up in boxes and put them in the incubator. And this is the male right here. This is a spider pied, and the interesting thing with the spider pied is when you mix the spider with the recessive gene pied, essentially what you get is you get an all-white snake with just a little bit of color on the head. This guy's kind of going all over the place. And if you can see that he has just a little color right on the head. And that is essentially what a spider pied is. So when you breed this, I'm breeding it with a normal 100% head caramel albino. Essentially what I'll get, I won't get any white snakes from the mix. What I'll get is, I'll get half of them will be normal looking, half will be spiders, and all of them will be 100% het pied. So they'll all carry one copy of the pied gene. And essentially what you have to do is you have to take those het pieds, breed them back together to actually get a visual pied. And I know a lot of people have been asking me, you know, they come up to my table and they're like, where are all your het pieds? And this year I thought I'd produce quite a few. I have a fire pied that I'm breeding as well, so I should have quite a few het pied offspring this fall. So let's check out those eggs and pull them from the female. All right, so here is what I have going on for this setup. Essentially the snake is down in the very bottom. I'm gonna pull that female and I'm gonna throw her in this empty boa tub. And let's take a look at her. She is on the very bottom level down here, sitting on a bunch of eggs, and hopefully she's actually laid them all. I just kind of peeked in there and saw she had some eggs. I'm not sure if she's completely done laying all these eggs, but it looks like she is, well, let's see here. She looks like she could be a little defensive maybe. She's hissing a little bit. Let's see if we can get her off these eggs here. She is a little protective mama. She is a good looking snake. This is essentially what a normal wild type snake looks like on a bunch of really nice looking eggs. Those all look like they're fertile eggs. She is hissing like crazy. Take a look at that. She's not happy about coming off those eggs. Not happy at all. Alright, let's see if we can get her off here. Let's see if she's done laying these eggs here. I think she might be. Oh. I think she's got one more egg right here, actually. I think so. What I want to do, actually, I might actually just take these eggs out. Alright, I'm going to take the female out. Alright, she's got to lay one more egg, it looks like, right in the bottom of her tail. She might have a couple in there, I don't know. But normally what I do is I pull these eggs out of here, and then she'll lay the eggs, the rest of the eggs, over in that other tub. So I want to work on these, and let's see, I'll just kind of pull them. Looks like they'll come right up. So I want to move those over to the table. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually separate these eggs. And usually when they're just laid, they're really easy to separate. Take a look at those beauties. Those are some good looking eggs right there. Very nice. And the funny thing is they kind of get stuck together. Look at how stuck they are. It's kind of almost like a glue when they lay them. And if you leave them sit for too long, then they get to the point where it's almost impossible to separate them without really damaging the eggs. And you can tell these have just been laid, so they are really easy to separate. That's why I want to get in there really early. Typically, I don't like to pull the female when she still has some eggs and she's still laying. And this is kind of an exception. I actually had one where they were laid for a little bit too long, and I went in there, and essentially what happened was I was trying to pull them apart. One of them actually sprung a little leak, and I put a Band-Aid on it to kind of seal it up, and it looked like it actually worked, which was pretty interesting. And then like a day later I pulled the Band-Aid off. So this is essentially what I do, is I just separate them. And you know, some people, what they do is they put the whole clutch in the box as they are laid, and you can do that, but the problem is if you have an egg that goes bad or gets really moldy or anything like that, then essentially what happens is you can't really separate that egg from the box, and you have a bad egg in with the good ones. And I don't really like to keep the bad with the good. I like to pull the bad ones out if it's, you know, if it's really bad, especially if an egg goes bad, it really stinks really bad. So that is essentially what I do, is to separate them. And then what I do from here is I candle them. So let me show you how I candle these eggs. And what I use is a little LED flashlight. And let me turn this light off. So what you really want to do is you want to put the embryo on the top of the egg, and you can see the embryo is this little round circle right here, and it kind of jiggles a little bit. And what you want to do from there is I just mark it with a marker, put a little X in the middle, and they say you have better hatch rates if you have the embryos up on top of the egg during incubation. So what I do is I just essentially just spin it around. There's the embryo right there. Put a little X. Here's another one. And sometimes, especially if they've been laid for a long time, it's really hard to see the embryo. Seems like the older the eggs are, the thicker the shell gets, and the more they stay stuck together. So really, for me, it's really essential to get in there as early as possible to try to get the eggs unstuck and to mark the embryos while I can still see it. And this one, it looks like I have 8 eggs in there so far. I just did 4. Here's another one. And it's interesting to see on snake eggs that there's actually quite a few veins that you can see in there. Unlike like a chicken egg, usually chicken eggs don't develop the veins until after they've developed quite a bit. And these right out of the snake, they are, you know, really well developed. You can see this one is this one's a really long egg. It's kind of interesting. All right, here is the last one. Let's see here. There it is. Very obvious on that one. Those are really wild looking eggs. And this essentially, this dark spot, that is part of the other egg that I peeled off. I lost part of an egg putting them together. Alright, so take a look at this. This is a snake egg being laid in the process. That is wild looking. That is really bizarre. And it looks like she has one more snake egg stuck up in her belly a little bit. And that is, I would say, this bump right here looks like another egg. But the interesting thing is take a look at this egg, how goopy it is. It is really, it is super, like super goopy. Look at how goopy it is. It's really, it's wet and it's sticky, because normally they're not wet and sticky like this, and it almost has like a glue on it, I think, that makes it get stuck together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to candle this one, and we'll see where the embryo is on this one. Alright, so this is the egg that was laid about 30 seconds ago, and I'm going to see what it looks like. I don't know if I've ever really candled an egg as fresh as this one. This is as fresh as an egg gets. It's pretty crazy. Let me get my marker here. And that is what a brand new, freshly laid egg looks like. There's the embryo right on top. That is pretty wild. Alright, so here is the egg boxes that I use. They're really cheap. You can get them like at the dollar store. I think I got these on Amazon. They're like little shoe boxes. And essentially what I do is I mix up vermiculite water 50-50 by weight. So essentially what I'll do is I'll zero out the balance, and then I'll add some water. This is like a 90-degree water that I mixed up, just regular tap water. And I used to do like 200 grams of each, and I found it was a little too much. So what I'm going to do is about 150. It looks like I'm about 130 now. 144. 146. It doesn't really have to be that exact. I try to get the ratio as exact as possible, but the weights don't really matter. So I'm at 150.6, 150.5 grams of water. So what I'll do here is I'll zero it out, and then I'll add vermiculite. And the funny thing is, this vermiculite is really fine. I got it at Home Depot, and it's typically about 50 grams per scoop, so I already know kind of how much is in there. So we're at 108, let's see, 146, 149, 150.5 hours. So we're exact on the water and the vermiculite. Now from here, what I do is I just kind of mix it up, and I don't know, I've kind of used gloves in the past to kind of, you know, try to keep the contamination down, but I'm starting to think now it doesn't really matter. I was just washing these out with bleach, so I had a lot of bleach water on my hands. It kind of disinfected my hands. So I'm not sure it really makes that much difference as far as long as your hands aren't really dirty, and you know, you don't want to go in here with really dirty hands, because remember, the eggs are going to sit in here for 2 months at 90 degrees. So you want somewhat of a clean, you know, substrate, and you don't really want to contaminate it too much. And then from here, essentially what I do is I just kind of spread it out and put this grate right on top. And then I put the eggs right on top. I'll put some press and seal on top, and then I'll put the lid on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up this second box, because normally I really don't have, it's usually too many eggs for one box with these big snakes, so I mix up 2 boxes exactly the same, so I can split the eggs pretty much 50-50. Alright, so from here, essentially what I do is I just put the eggs right in the egg boxes, and I have to say that the egg box setup is not really, there's a lot of people that do a lot of different egg box setups. There's a lot of people that put it, you know, right on the vermiculite. Some people use perlite, some people use a grate, some people don't. There's like a million different ways you can do egg boxes. Some people actually just suspend them on a grate over water in the egg box, and there's, as long as you keep the humidity up high, it doesn't really matter. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them in here and do probably like 5 or 6 to a box. Looks like we have 4, 8, 9 eggs here. So that is, it looks like it'll be a 10 egg clutch with no slugs. That is pretty awesome. So I'm gonna do is 5 per box, and what I do is I kind of just stagger them. Some people, what they'll do is they'll use like toothpicks to kind of stick them in there and do stuff like that. But I found if I just kind of wedge them together, it usually stays pretty good. I've never really had a problem with eggs rolling over in the egg box. I'm really careful as far as lifting them and putting them in the incubator. So from here, what I do is I use this press and seal, and what I'm going to do first, I'm going to put the eggs in this other box and set these up and get this tray out of here so I can actually get a little bit of room on this table here. And you can tell these are laid so fresh, they're already starting to stick to things. This one's really sticky. It's got some, looks like it's got some stuff on it just from kind of, it's just from kind of rolling around in there. It's still really goopy. This is the one that was just laid last, and it's starting to firm up a little bit. When they're first laid, they're really soft and squishy, and then probably within a half an hour they firm up and they're like a really tough leather. It's really interesting. Alright, so from here what I do is I use this Glad press and seal, and I essentially just put it right on the top of the egg box, and let me show you how this works. Just like this. And I don't put any holes in the top, I don't put any holes in the tub at all. I just keep it completely sealed, and there's no problems at all with the snakes breathing. and getting any ventilation. It's kind of interesting at first, you know, when I first saw this technique online, I'm like, you know, it doesn't seem like the snakes could breathe in there when they hatch out, but I've never had any problems, and it looks like, as far as I can tell, no one's ever had any problems with this actually breathing and putting enough oxygen in this container. All right, so from here, what I do is I label each box, and I label it with the pairing, the date they were laid, and the hatch date, and that is the information I put right on the box. I put 2 labels up here, 2 labels on the side, and then as soon as mama lays her last egg, I'm gonna set up and label that box. All right, so this is my snake egg incubator that I built from a beverage cooler. Some guy actually bought the beverage cooler brand new, and the compressor went out, and I got it for next to nothing, and I converted it to an incubator. Essentially what I did is I disconnected all the compressor and everything, put heat tape on the sides, and put a heat controller on the bottom. I think I'm using a VE100, and it's been working great. Last year I hatched probably 100 plus hatchlings out of here, and this year I actually upgraded to putting some temperature probes on the bottom shelf and the top shelf, so I can kind of keep, you know, keep a tabs on the maximum temperature and the minimum temperature from each. You know, the top side and the bottom side. I have a fan in there rotating the air to kind of keep it more stable, but you see there is a temperature variation from the top to the bottom a little bit. This goes up to pretty much, you know, you can see it was from, you know, pretty much from 88 to 91. If I open the door, they drop down a bit, but you know, normally it's about 88 to 90 degrees, which is pretty much ideal, right where you want the incubator. All right, so check this out. Here comes the very last egg, peeking out just a little bit. That is pretty wild. That is crazy. That's so awesome. All right, so there you have it. There's nothing more exciting than pulling eggs from females in the middle of the ball python breeding season. And one thing I've learned as a snake breeder, you never count your snakes before they hatch, because 100% of those eggs don't always make it through the 2 months of incubation. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.